everyone, I'm Miranda and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's great to be back videoing again. I had a bit of a longer break than I initially thought I would have to because unfortunately I did have some side effects from my second vaccine. Nothing too serious, but it just knocked me out for a couple of weeks, and I'm really thankful to be doubly vaccinated now. That's really wonderful, but I'm still feeling a bit more tired than usual. So it's great to be back this week, and I'll probably be doing one video on a Wednesday next week. So that's a bit of a different day, but then the following week I should be back to normal, posting videos on Tuesdays and Fridays. I'm really thankful to have had both of them done, and I'm really looking forward to just feeling myself for the rest of the summer now. If you've been following me for a little while, then you'll know that spring and the start of summer has been a bit of a rocky time for me. So I'm really glad to soon be feeling completely myself again. But it's lovely to be back chatting to you, and I thought I would just catch you up a bit today on some of the bookish things I've been enjoying, and specifically what I've been reading, listening to and watching lately. The advantage of having a lot of time in bed over the past couple of weeks has meant that I've been doing some reading, and I've just had a lot of time for rest and relaxation, and that has been really nice. So I thought I'd share what I've been reading first of all with you. So my current read is The Feast by Margaret Kennedy. And I've been wanting to read this for a while. I've heard really good things about this book, and Faber recently reissued it. It was first published, I think, in 1950, and the book is set in 1947. It's set in Cornwall over a summer, and the book starts in such an amazing way. It instantly draws you in to the story. You find out that a cliff in a small cove in Cornwall has collapsed on a hotel. And at first you assume that there have been no survivors, and then it turns out that in fact some people have survived, but you don't know who. And then the story goes back in time to August, before this tragedy has occurred, and it starts to tell the story of all of the miscellaneous assortment of curious characters, the guests that have assembled at this hotel, and you get to know more about them and their lives and how they interact with each other. And I'm so enjoying it. I haven't got that far yet, but I'm loving Margaret Kennedy's writing already. She is such an accomplished writer, and she has so much to say about post-war Britain and all of the tensions between classes, and it's just so interesting in terms of that historical perspective to read this book, and I'm really loving it. So this one, even though it's fairly fat, I'm reading it quite quickly already. I just started it last night, and I think I'll be whipping my way through this one, really enjoying it. I always love books set in Cornwall, and yes, I just want to get to the end to see what happened, who survived. I hope it's the characters I like. I'm frightened that it won't be, so definitely really enjoying this. And then I'll share some of the books that I read when I wasn't feeling very well the past couple of weeks. And one of them was this one, Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I've heard so much about this book. There is a sequel to it now as well, and this is the first in the little series, and it was a best-selling book in Japan. This has been translated, and I love the premise to this collection of stories. It's all about this very special cafe in Japan, and amazingly, there's a special chair in the corner of this cafe that allows customers to travel either backwards or even forwards in time. And this slim volume is essentially a collection of short stories, although they are all linked, about the different characters that visit the cafe and who do time travel and why they time travel. Now, there are all sorts of rules around the time travel that's allowed in this cafe. Someone may travel back in time, but they must return to the present before the coffee gets cold. So they must drink their cup of coffee before it gets cold, otherwise they'll just be stuck in limbo and transformed into a kind of ghost. So there's always that tension. And there are lots of other little rules surrounding the time travel aspect. And I liked how the structure of each story also in a way follows a very particular pattern, almost a set of rules, and that kind of reflects the rules surrounding the time travel. Each of the stories just follows this particular structure that as a reader you can come to expect and enjoy. But it's full of really quirky, really endearing characters in this. And there are some very touching moments. If you think about reasons why people may want to time travel, perhaps to see someone they never got a chance to see again, someone who is struggling with dementia and his loved ones. So there are some really quite heartbreaking moments in this, but it's just such a sweet, life-affirming, heartwarming kind of book in the end, and I really, really enjoyed it. The only thing I struggled a little bit with was that I think sometimes I feel a bit frustrated when I read fiction in translation, because I do feel like so often I'm missing out on all of these nuances of language that I would be able to pick up on and really enjoy if I could read in Japanese, for instance. And sometimes the sentences can come over a little bit clunky or stilted in English, and when it's been translated you don't always know if that's intentional or if it's just the result of the translation. But that's just, part and parcel of reading something in translation. And I still just really, really enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to read the sequel, which I have on my shelf. And then my mum was so sweet. The first week when I really wasn't feeling that well at all, she went out to our nearby Waterstones and she got this special Waterstones edition of Yours Cheerfully by A.J. Pierce. And I read this book so fast. I absolutely loved it. I was a big fan of Dear Mrs. Bird, which is the first in this series called the Emmeline Lake Chronicles, I think. And this is the second. And I've been looking forward to this book's publication ever since I first read Dear Mrs. Bird, which was in 2018. So a few years now. And it did not disappoint. It was just the sort of feel-good, heartwarming read that I needed. And it really did cheer me up reading this. I so enjoyed it. I wrote a review of this on my blog actually, so I'll put a link to that in the description box if you want to read it. But essentially, Yours Cheerfully continues the story of Emmy, who is the main protagonist from Dear Mrs. Bird. She's a young woman in her early 20s, and the book is set in London during the Second World War. Emmy's dream was to become a war correspondent, but instead she's ended up working as a journalist for a women's magazine. And after a bit of a rocky start to her job, she's now in this book settled down and is really enjoying it, and she's thrilled when the Ministry of Information reach out to all of the women's magazines and ask them essentially to help in a campaign to attract women to join the working force at home in the UK, because so many men are being sent to war. So they want more women to sign up for work at home, especially jobs that men traditionally did at that time, like working in factories. And Emmy decides she's going to interview some women who work in a munitions factory outside of London. She becomes very friendly with a lot of those women, and she starts to realise that although these women really want to work, and they're also very patriotic, it's often very difficult for them because a lot of them are mothers and there's no adequate childcare provided. So Emmy, who is a real let's get it done type of character, sets about trying to help these women, and it's just lovely because this is such a book about female solidarity, about how women can support other women and uplift each other. I really enjoy that female friendship is always at the heart of A.J. Pierce's writing, and that's very much true in Yours Cheerfully as well. There's also, if you know Emmy's story too, then you'll be really satisfied by the ending to this book, which is absolutely lovely. I don't want to give anything away, so I won't say what it is, but it's just really romantic and heartwarming, and it's very Christmassy too. So I think at Christmas time this year, I'll actually be returning to this book and reading those last few chapters because they were just so sweet. I loved them. So yeah, such a great read. And then I always like to check out the Reese's Book Club, which I follow on Instagram. I always enjoy her recommendations, and I don't always read them every month. But you know me, I'm such a seasonal reader. So when I saw a book that was called 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, I thought I have to read this in June. And I did manage to read this in June, which was great. And I really enjoyed this. I love books that are about writers and like the publishing industry and bibliophiles generally. So this was right up my alley because it's about two famous authors who spent 7 days together as teenagers having this really highly charged teenage romance together. But then they were separated, hadn't seen each other for 15 years, and suddenly by chance find themselves at a writers' event in Brooklyn, I think. And their interaction, again, it's instantly sort of fireworks between them. There's so much chemistry and electricity going on. And of course they end up falling in love again, but the path to love never did run smooth, so there are a few obstacles in the way, but this is just a very sort of steamy romance. But I loved the main character, Eva, who is a single mother, and she writes these quite erotic sort of vampire mysteries, definitely in the sort of Twilight type vein, I think. And she actually wants to sort of be able to stop writing those and write some book that she feels a lot more passionately about. But as a single mother, she also has to think about bringing home money, and also she has to learn how to have more confidence in herself. But she's a really remarkable character, and although this is really a romance book, there are also some much more serious themes going on within it. One of the most significant is how Tia Williams describes having an invisible disability. Eva suffers from horrendous migraines that really interrupt her life, that really mean that she can't live a sort of regular life. This is something that Tia Williams herself experiences, and she writes so compassionately about it. It's really, really moving to read it, and there's just so much more depth to this book generally, I would say, than it just being, you know, kind of light romance novel. It is still light, and it's the sort of thing I whipped through and you can read on the beach in the summer, but it does also explore some darker themes. And part of the story flashes back in time to Eva's quite troubled teenage years, where she didn't have the right pain meds to cope with her condition and resorted to self-harm and things like that. So there is a darker side to the story, but you see how much Eva blossoms, how she ends up having this amazing life on so many levels, and it just is really such a heartwarming story. And I think it has the most romantic ending. I loved it. And also, one of my favourite scenes in it is when they go to Ladurée. Even her 12-year-old daughter have this tradition of going to Ladurée together, so I definitely recommend eating some macaroons whilst you eat this, whilst you read this, if you can, because yeah, just reading about their amazing trip to Ladurée really made me want some macaroons. We did get some from Betty's actually, but yeah, so much to enjoy and to think about and to discuss from this book. So those are all the things I've been reading lately that I wanted to share with you. I also was sent this amazing book, which I should sort of film a bit as a cutaway because it's so big I can't really show you properly. But it's this amazing facsimile manuscript edition of Jane Eyre. It's published by SP Books. I'll put a link to it in the description box. And it's just amazing. It's so beautiful, it's so special to see Charlotte Bronte's original manuscript with her handwriting and all the little blots of ink and her crossings out. It's just so special to have this, and it inspired me to listen to Jane Eyre on audiobook again, which was really lovely. But yes, so that was an amazing thing to get. I was just so thrilled. And then what else have I been listening to on audiobooks? Because you know I always have one audiobook on the go. Oh yes, so right now I'm listening to Towards Zero by Agatha Christie. I downloaded this inspired a bit by Wimbledon. I must admit I don't watch a lot of sports, but as always I do like a bit of sort of seasonal inspired reading, and Towards Zero is based partly around a character who's a professional tennis player. So I thought it'd be quite fun to listen to this one, and I'm really enjoying it. Don't actually remember this mystery, and I'm starting to wonder if I've ever even read it before, which is amazing because I was sure I'd read every single Agatha Christie book, but I don't actually think I've read this one before, so that's very exciting for me and I'm really enjoying it. And then I was also listening to some Just William short stories read by Martin Jarvis because I just wanted something really light and that would make me laugh. And those definitely did. I love Martin Jarvis reading Just William. They're just so funny. And then I have also been having a little bit more time for television over the past couple of weeks. I don't normally watch a lot of TV, but I discovered a show on Netflix that I absolutely love, and it's quite literary, so I have to recommend it to you. And it's called Lupin. It's actually a French TV series, and it's been a huge hit on Netflix. It's based a little on the stories of Arsène Lupin, who is sort of the French equivalent to Raffles. He's a gentleman thief. But this Netflix version is a modern, updated, in some ways a retelling of the stories, but more inspired by the stories. And it's so cleverly done. I absolutely loved it. My mum watched it with me too. We both really enjoyed it. I would say be careful because on Netflix it automatically starts playing the American sort of dubbed version. The sound is dubbed, and if you don't like that, I don't like that. If you don't like that, then just make sure that you swap to English subtitles, and then it plays it in the original French, which I much prefer. But yeah, so it's set in France, in Paris. I loved all the scenes of Paris. It starts amazingly with this incredible heist, and that just pulls you right into the story straight away. But it's brilliantly acted. There's some very, very good actors in it, and it really keeps you guessing. There are so many twists and turns to the plot, but if you enjoy Sherlock Holmes, that type of vibe, but this is more modern, then I think you would really like this show, and I really recommend it. I watched both seasons, which there are only 5 episodes each season, so only about 10 episodes I think in total at the moment, and I really recommend them. Just so good. But anyway, I think I'm going to end this first video back here for now. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the things that I've been loving over the past 2 to 3 weeks. Let me know if you've read any of these books, or if you've watched Lupin, or if I've inspired you to give anything a try. I'd love to know. But yes, so tell me what you've been enjoying lately. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back again very soon, and please do give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on my face that pops up on the screen over here. But I'll see you next Wednesday, and then after that I'll be back to my regular uploading schedule. So thanks so much, and see you soon. Bye!